All right, hello. Welcome to episode 5 of the Comic and The Counsel. We are both actually in Los Angeles. We are currently at the Sheraton Universal Studios, and we've turned this room into our own studio.
Beautiful.
So Jonathan, how you like in LA?
I love it. Yeah, I haven't before had a chance to come here and like drive around in my own car and stuff. So it's a beautiful place. I would have moved here actually, probably instead of Portland, except for the extraordinary cost of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but yeah, it's like good energy, right? Like the weather.
Oh yeah, because we were at the Comedy Store last night. I had never been there. I love comedy clubs. I've been to quite a few in New York, but I've been to quite a few actually, even in other parts of the world, but had never really been to a club in LA, which is kind of sad. So I was pretty excited to be there. And yeah, everybody at the Comedy Store was awesome.
Fun place,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like
Very friendly. It was a lot of fun.
I remember when I very first went there, I was like, man, this is like a party. It's a little different now because it's COVID, times, but
Yeah.
it's still like a really fun place. And last night was a good night.
And Jeff Ross was there, and he was really funny. He wasn't roasting anyone. He was doing his own thing, but he was making me laugh out loud a lot.
So like overall, you said like you thought everyone was funny pretty much, or you like enjoyed the show?
Oh yeah. We didn't get to see every single comic because we were kind of in and out, talking people outside and everything. But we saw I saw at least half a dozen besides the
I'm laughing.
That's our producer in the back. She's got this little rubber toy with some treats in it, and she just kind of sits back there and she just kind of works on it with her mouth. It's a little mouth puzzle.
That's funny. That's Ella. She's enjoying some treats.
She's enjoying Los Angeles. I don't think she wants to go back to Portland, actually. I think she likes the weather out here.
Oh no, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was everyone we saw, I feel like, was solid. But then again, that's the Comedy Store. It's like it's really solid comedians like all the time.
Yeah.
So, and John got to see me perform, which was the first time, right? You ever saw me?
Yeah, it's the first time I've seen you just do like a full set, and I don't even really usually, like, you'll tell me about a set, like if you thought you bombed or something, but I didn't. You're probably not going to tell me like, oh, I did a really good job, like I killed it. I guess maybe if you really was got like a standing ovation, but so what was the name of the room we were in?
So I was in the belly room. That's where you saw me, which is upstairs of the Comedy Store. It's like the smaller room, and then the other two rooms, which are downstairs, are the original room and the main room. The main room's the big one.
Right, but so you went on like kind of mid-evening, right? Like, was it like
middle of the show? I'd say,
yeah,
around there.
It went really well, I thought.
Thank you.
You felt pretty good, right? I thought it was
that was cool.
A pretty friendly audience, but it wasn't like a bunch of drunk people. They were just
it was probably on the smaller side of what that room can hold capacity wise, but they were good.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was fun.
Yeah. Got some good laughs several times, and then also, I mean, you finished pretty strong too, which is always good.
Nice.
Yeah, the last joke I told you a couple times. I really like that joke about San Diego, and I think that's what you kind of finished with, right, towards the end. Yeah. So it went really well, and that was good because I wasn't really nervous for you because you've been out there working out there for a while, and then and also it wouldn't be my stage fright, so I wouldn't be, I wouldn't feel that empathy. But the second they called your name, like when you were like maybe 4 or 5 steps from the stage and about to grab the mic, I started getting like nervous for you just because it's like this automatic kind of empathetic response. And I was like, oh, I hope the first, because you kind of made a joke about what the last comic said, and I was like, I hope that goes well. I think there might have been like one little, like a couple of people who didn't really get into it, but everybody seemed to like the segue. So from then on, I was like, okay. I was like, I just hope he doesn't, because we do that.
Oh, I was gonna say, what would you have done if I just like completely like just drew a blank and I was like, oh man, I can't
I was gonna
remember what I was gonna do. Like, would you have what if I was like, hey, Jonathan, what's going on? Like, what if I call your name and I'm like, hey, do you remember what I was talking to you earlier? Wasn't I talking to you about a joke?
I would have been on my way.
Jonathan, hello? I swear he's here, guys.
I would have been on Highway 101 headed north. Like, oh, see you guys. I would have said bye to everybody like that I met. And I would be like, by the way, we knew each other in high school, but we're not really that close. I'm only here for business. But yeah, so what else? We got some questions, right?
You want to go if you want to pull those up, again, guys, send us your questions, Comic and Counsel at gmail.com. It's up here. You notice. Well, actually, this includes but excuse me.
Yeah, we're kind of moving up. We've got our producer in the back has kind of set this up for us. That's why she's snacking now. She's worn herself out. All right, so we got a few emails actually, a couple from one person. A couple from the same person. So this is from Scasa, and he's got questions for each of us. So I'll start with what's at the top, which is, it looks like it's directed to me. And it says, why is it considered street performing when there's a guy poorly playing an out-of-tune guitar on a corner, but it's considered public indecency when I take a shit on someone's front porch? And then the second question is for you, and it says, Renee, why are you so mad about me shitting on your porch? Well, that's pretty simple, actually. It's considered public indecency when you take a shit on someone's porch. Well, that would be the exposure of your ass. That would be the main difference. Do you know this guy? Is somebody shitting on your porch?
No, but it just immediately made me think of when I was visiting you in Portland. I don't know if I've already said this on the podcast. We were eating lunch, and just that guy walked down the street just with his pants down, and he was either jerking off or making motions like he was.
So it wasn't a dance.
Some public indecency right there.
So yeah, my best legal advice would just be generally keep your pants on in public, and if you have to go to the bathroom, try to do it in the proper place.
And stop shitting on my porch. On my made up porch of my made up house, I have a studio apartment. But if I did have a house, I definitely have a sweet porch, and I definitely don't want you shitting on
it. So this one, there's a case directed to you, a legal case. Maybe they meant it for me. Maybe they just want your opinion on it. But so Scasa says, John, what's your method for being calm when the pressure is on? I would actually ask you. I think that's more important for you, because I have spent most of my time, like the roughly, 8 or 9 years I've been an attorney. It's mostly been as an in-house general counsel. So I spent about a couple of years doing more traditional practice when I got out of law school, and going into courts and in and out of courts in South Carolina. And I don't know, I didn't have any nothing about that made me too especially nervous. Sometimes judges there can be sort of mean, but other than that, I never had to develop like a specific method to trying to keep calm. But do you you've been on getting on a stage for a long time, right? So
I think the main way of staying calm is just from doing it for so long, just like the more you comfortable you get doing with anything you do, right? So I don't know, but like I go on commercial auditions, and I don't really get that worked up about it. I know a lot of people will get frustrated, like, oh, I've messed up, like I was nervous, or I did this or I did that. And it's like, I feel like I'm like, hey, like this is what I can do and what I know I can do, and like I just don't. I guess with commercial auditions it's different because I know it's like mostly, in my opinion, I feel like it's all about the look.
Right. And
so
well,
it's like
you
it's like
probably
I like I'm confident that I was funny and like my timing was good and I delivered my lines well, but if I don't have the look you're going for, like that's fine. I'm not going to be upset about it.
Sure. Yeah, and you probably hit on like one of the operative parts, which is true for any other profession, which is experience. Sometimes you probably had a lot of experiences where you were nervous and then you did probably not do as well as you wanted to. So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, at least probably, especially like the first year you were out there. But that's true for like going into court. That's one of the reasons they teach law school the way that they do. They don't do this 100% in every class, but the Socratic Method, you probably heard that, where you're called on and you're like kind of the focus of attention in the class, and the professor's basically expecting you to teach the class like what the case is about, and you're supposed to be able to explain everything to everyone as an expert and like stand up and do it. And that in some cases that could end up meaning that in some classes you wouldn't have to take up the whole class with one person, but I've been in a class where I think like maybe 2 people were called on, which meant for the hour and 15 minutes, they were basically just like getting grilled in front of all of us. And so one of the reasons they do that is to help you kind of sort through your logic and help you see the flaws in it, but also to get you prepared to be in front of somebody who's a really smart judge and obviously has a lot of experience and knowledge, and they're going to grill you sometimes. They're not always going to be friendly, and it's not personal. They're just that's just kind of part of their job. And so the more you do it, at a certain point, it just gets kind of
right. It's all
becomes
time
dull, it becomes another banality of your day. Right.
Yeah. With the stand-up though too, like I was definitely nervous, and I've been nervous before. And like, I think even subconsciously I'll be nervous. Like I did a show like a month or so ago in front of a bigger crowd than usual. But I've done crowds that big before, but I think because it had been so long, I think maybe I like came off as a little nervous, even though I wasn't like thinking about like how big the crowd was. Like maybe just like subconsciously my body's probably like, whoa,
right.
Like we're experiencing this large room of all these people, but I'm like just doing my thing kind of. But another thing that helped me too is we played in a band, and I played another band too. And so we did shows before, like I played a bunch of shows on stage. So doing stand-up was kind of the similar feeling where I'm like, oh, I'm on stage again. Like, and there's people here watching. Right, like, it's like I've done this before with my guitar in my hand. The only difference is now I have a microphone. So I'm like, oh, it was a familiar thing for me, luckily. So I wasn't like it wasn't like just someone who's never been on stage before with a microphone.
I wasn't even really thinking about that actually, but because we weren't like, rock stars or anything, but we did play at a lot of shows and in a lot of different states and stuff in a lot of different cities. And it does just, like, once you've done it so many times, it's just kind of like the crowds are always kind of the same, like it's the same type of people. For me too, I've got teaching experience in college. And I'd worked as a substitute teacher when I was like a freshman in college. But yeah, I think that's probably pretty key to getting good at anything in every aspect, whether that's just being calm or just developing your.
Another thing that helps, I think, with everyone in like social situation too, is booze.
Right. Yeah.
That can help you relax.
We probably could have just cut out everything we just said.
just get hammered.
Yeah. Because we're sitting here, and I'm sitting here drinking a beer myself.
But that could definitely help. Have a cocktail. You're more relaxed, right? Like that's why people, will helps you speak at parties, right? You're a lot more social when you've had a couple drinks. Our producer is checking the.
Yeah, she seems a little concerned about something in the back. It appears to be her butt, and she okay.
She just there we go.
All right, she's gonna go to bed now. All right. Okay, so we've got one more from Skasa, and after what's your method for being calm and the pressure's on. This is a good one. What are your thoughts on and this is probably for you. No, I'm just kidding. What are your thoughts on the frivolity of, is that how you said that? Frivolity or frivolity?
Frivolity
of the 1893 case, Nix versus Hedden.
Ah, good old Nix versus Hedden.
So Renee, can you tell us about that, please? Could you stand up and face the rest of the class?
1893.
So based on Scott's questions so far, you are joking, but you probably don't know what that case is about. Do you have any guesses?
That's why I'm like 1893. Something about. Oh, is it about public indecency?
I was just wondering what your thoughts were, but I'll tell you what. It's more of an amusing case probably than it is like the most important Supreme Court case, but it's a United States Supreme Court case from 1893, and it involved the Tariff Act of 18 something, the year before that, or a couple of years before that. I don't remember the exact year, but it was a law, federal law dealing with tariffs, and the issue was there was it imposed a tariff on vegetables, but did not put one on fruit, I believe is how it went. And so the issue was how a tomato was classified, and it involved somebody who didn't want to pay taxes on their tomatoes, and ultimately it involved the Supreme Court trying to settle the question of whether or not a tomato is really a fruit or a vegetable. And
wow,
I believe it was a fruit was what they decided. Yeah. And
well, tomato is a fruit, but then I think it's a fruit, right? But then I feel like I read something about it recently where it's like there's a handful of fruit / vegetables, right? Like that can be either or, and that like actually are accepted as either or. I think tomato might be one of them, right? Or maybe I was reading another thing.
Not according to the Supreme Court of these United States, my friend.
Well, now enough time has blown over where they're like, actually, it can be a vegetable too,
but he's wanting to know, I guess, do we think that's a ridiculous case? Here's the thing. Most of litigation, I think it has to do with money and how much it's worth, no matter what the issue is. I've had people with like really, really good claims, but for whatever reason, there's not really any damages, right? They were damaged maybe a little bit, but a few dollars, it's not worth bringing it. And this involved, I don't know what the exact number was, but probably large. It was probably a large consequence on however large the shipment was of tomatoes.
There's a lot of tomatoes.
Yeah.
Tomatoes are like in everything, right? So I wonder how much they used tomatoes back in 1893 versus today. I mean, I know there's a ton more people now, so there's more tomato, but I wonder how much if they use them more, like in more foods or.
Yeah, the tomatoes we've got more creative with it.
I think so.
Yeah, we know what we're doing with tomatoes. I mean, once we figure that out, that probably helps. Like once chefs knew for sure what they were dealing with, fruit or vegetable, the Supreme Court weighed in on that. They know how the Tariff Act applies. So we probably got a lot more uses of tomatoes after that. So we have another question from Diane, which says, for the comic, tell us about your favorite time doing stand-up. And there's a couple more questions. We'll stop there and
tell us about your favorite time doing stand-up. Well, this is what I thought at first is like favorite time doing stand-up, like as a whole, like the time is like I've gone on the road. I've been fortunate enough to go on the road with Pauly Shore. He will take me to different cities. I'll open for him, and that like whole experience is fun. Just I think with when we played shows in a band, like just traveling is always fun, right? It's always a fun experience.
As good as a vacation, they say.
New city never seen,
new food, new people, new ideas.
That's always a great part. What was the favorite part about doing stand-up? Or
so the first part of this, there's a couple of questions, but it says first tell us about your favorite time that you did stand-up. So like particularly maybe it was on the road, or like maybe you had a particularly great show.
Yeah, there's been a handful of sets where I'm like, wow, that really went well. Like I have a good spot of on the lineup of the night, and the crowd's like really hot. and everything just clicks. You're like, damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's happened a handful of times where I'm like, damn, that one was up in one of my better sets ever. I've had a couple of those probably in the belly room of the Comedy Store, because when that place, it's a smaller room, so when it's packed, it's like electric. And I think, intimacy is vital for stand-up, and it's like it can make it just that much better. I mean, Dave Chappelle recorded a special there in the belly room of the Comedy Store.
Mm-hmm.
I like, smaller rooms when they're packed, it's just like it can be better. I mean, the main room's cool too, like bigger rooms are cool, but with stand-up, it's like that's why the clubs are like smaller,
Right.
like one room as opposed to like a big theater, which it's just, yeah, that intimacy is just makes you, I think you just connect more, right? And it's like seeing a band play. Like you don't want to see like, being like using binoculars, right? You want to be like front row, right? So
yeah.
That's the same thing with stand-up.
Trying to connect with people. So like even in the classroom, so ideally if you could have a professor with just like 5 students that you just focus on, you're going to get a lot more out of that because it's more intimate as opposed to
totally
big lecture hall. I was going to say something. Maybe I'd asked you this earlier, but do you happen to remember what those people were doing in the main room? Remember there was like one woman in the back and like somebody else, and I don't think you even saw all of it because you walked out. But I remember a couple of people got called down, and then they just would not shut up. And
yeah, it was they were just kind of a rowdy crowd last night, and they in the main room, and they because we walked we sat in the back to watch a little bit, and the people were like off to the side, and they were just I think they were just talking, and
just because they were like kind of in the front, so enough to kind of like interrupt.
When people get drunk, they sometimes they want to be a part of the show, and they think they can give some input and that it's going to help, but that's never the case.
And personally, like I really love when that happens because you get some of the best riffing sometimes, like because comedians will, you're going to be a jerk about it. They're gonna roast you sometimes, right? Like right there in front of everybody. And I wish I could remember one of the lines last night, but I remember there was this one guy who was just like, I don't know if he was at that Helium Club in Portland. I remember there was this one guy kind of sitting in the front, and he was just like, he was asked, I think Adam asked him like a simple question, like, what's your favorite? I can't remember. It's like, what's your favorite animal? And it's like he couldn't name one. It's like he was just like, a chair.
Yeah.
And he was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Are you married to him? And that's what happens too. I think sometimes people they've been drinking all night at the comedy club, but they also may have been drinking, before, and it's been a long night, and it's just kind of like kind of out of it. So this Diane goes on, your favorite time doing stand-up, and also what's your favorite joke? And then there's a couple for me.
Well, that's a great question.
Favorite joke. Do you have one? I would bifurcate it into 2 questions actually, and say, do you have a favorite joke of yours that you just like telling that seems to work? And sometimes it's special for another reason because it's, because it relates to something that is important to you. But also, can you think of any favorite joke of like all time, of comedians all time?
It's really tough to say, but I mean, right now, like a joke that I enjoyed doing was like the joke I did like you said last night that you enjoyed. I enjoy doing that because it's like there's like a couple different parts to it, right? Like in a sense, it's not just like it's more like the joke is more how people react to something that's actually funny in itself. Like if I tell the first part, it's like funny, but then it's people's reactions to that funny thing is what's also funny. Mm-hmm. And I think it makes it funnier as a whole. And that reminded us one time there was this comic who, which sometimes with comics will, you probably heard them talk about like, oh, audience members will sometimes try to give you advice after the show, be like, or just be like, oh, you should do this one joke, like,
yeah,
right, like, oh, my friend Jonathan said you should do this, and he said that, and you could do that for your skits or your act, right, or whatever, like some drunk person being like, oh, you should say this, right, and you're just like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah.
It right? Kind of reminds me, if you ever had like a like an older person when you were younger, like just try to give you career advice, like kind of random, like just be like, you know what you should do?
Exactly.
Get a tow truck business. You just tow trucks and they'll pay you. You make a ton of money. You get 1 million tow trucks, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of act like, yeah, you know, forget about every other aspect of life. It just, that solves everything, right?
So what's funny is that, like, I got that, but from a comedian. It happens sometimes with comedians, and usually it's actually kind of cool when it's comic, because you're like, oh, okay, I know, like I respect what they're doing, like especially if it's like someone you like, and you're like, oh, actually, that's really fun. That's like a good tag, or you know, if they have a good idea, right? Then you're like, oh, cool. Well, one time a comic, I did that joke, and the comic was like, oh, hey, if you're gonna do just unsolicited advice, if you're gonna do it, like, just say this, and it was like, I was like, wow, like so bold. Like, not only that, because it wasn't, it was funny because I was like, oh, you actually missed the point of the joke. That like,
right.
That's not the point of the joke, was not the first part. Like I said, it's like, it's funny how like people react, and I'm like, you totally missed the point of the joke. Like,
right. And they're also missing the point of the show, which is not to make your life, your dreams come true, you specifically, right? Like we all could say, oh, I thought that was funny, but like I would have thought it was personally especially funny if you'd said it this way, right? But
right, like if I'm gonna even talk to a comic, I'd be like, oh, hey, I really like that joke. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
Or like, hey, like this could be a potential tag, you know, maybe like
instead of saying it like they're your supervisor.
Yeah, it was weird. And what was funny is like, that's fine even if you did it, if the comic was like, oh, hey, when you do it, like just do it like this instead, and then actually said something brilliant, I'd be like, whoa, actually, yeah, that's cool. Like, but it was just so funny because it was like already coming in hot, like arrogant. Just do it like this, and I'm like, oh, you actually missed the point of the joke, because it's not the point. Right. I don't want to tell the joke here because I want people to come see me perform, yeah. But I can tell you afterward, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, that's not the point of the joke. It's like, thank you for trying to give me advice and being arrogant about it. Like I expected better from you, but okay. Yeah, I enjoy doing that joke right now. And then as far as like a favorite joke ever, I don't know. I have like jokes that like some comics do that I'm like, oh, that's like a really good joke. I really like that bit, you know, or like I really like that joke. Like there's several of those, but I don't have like one specific.
Right. It's kind of like asking, you know, favorite song.
Favorites. Yeah.
Depends. Like depends on what I'm doing, right? What the kind of mood I'm in.
Right.
I was gonna ask you something.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, yeah. So I was gonna get to something. Are you familiar with the Aristocrats joke?
I know it's a thing, but I don't know how it goes.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering if anybody. I was gonna ask if people still do that ever. I mean, I don't know what setting you would do it in, because I don't think people would want to hear it in a club, but you know, it's just basically the kind of a riff where you tell some really horrendous thing that a family comes in to do at a talent agency. It's like a family, they come in and they're like, we got this family act, and you just go on and on and on about some really disgusting, just horrible acting. You can do whatever you want and you go on with it. And then the punchline, it's like a really old joke. I don't know how far back it goes, probably maybe the 19th century or something, but and that the punchline is the Aristocrats. He asks them, what's your act called? Mm-hmm. After they say all this ridiculous stuff, they're this disgusting family, and then they're like, we're the Aristocrats. But I don't think I've ever really, I don't know when I would ever see somebody perform that. But do I have a favorite joke? Same thing. I mean, it's like there's different things hit me in different ways. I like jokes for different reasons. You know, some like John Mulaney, he cracks me up, and this is kind of why I like a lot of comedians, because they'll say things and I'm like, that is a thought I've had in my head a million times, and you just articulated it so well and made it. You helped me understand myself a little bit better, even as to like why that irritated me, or why I think that's weird or funny. Somebody last night, I can't remember who it was talking about getting boarding a plane and the way people like just jump up immediately.
Oh yeah.
And I've told people that, but the other part of it, which is that I don't understand why people, why they rush to get on the plane the way they do.
Yeah, every time
they'll go, all right, we're going to start boarding, and everybody jumps up and they're like, you know, like clinging to the bags and they're like, let me on. And I'm
it's like speeding up to a red light is like,
exactly,
what are you doing?
It's like, just let me on when the second to last seatbelt has been buckled. Tell me,
exactly.
I'll come in. I'll be at the bar, and whenever I can come in, it's like these people. somebody was trying to explain to me their rationale because I was joking about it. And you know how sometimes you'll joke about something, and be like, I don't understand why people do that. That seems so ridiculous. But our producer is
adjusting some technical.
Well, she was out. She was away for a second. She heard me talking about the aristocrats joke, and I think she was getting a little nervous about that. They jump up like it's gonna make the plane take off faster. You know, you want to say to them like, you know, they're gonna wait for me to get on and buckle my seatbelt. Like no matter how fast you get on, I'm still coming with you guys. You can't leave without me. So
yeah, the same thing too. Yeah, when they're getting off, like the comic set is like it's funny too. You see it in the back, like very far back. I'm like, where you got like 20 minutes before you can even like see some space to even get up and kind of start to walk. Like it's.
And what I was gonna say is, you know,
what are you doing?
You'll joke like Facebook is bad for this because people can't see your face. You know, you just type something, and so they read into all sorts of tone that's not there.
Right.
And then you have people on Facebook who like wanted to be your friends, but you know why? I don't know. It's like they're like a casual acquaintance, and it's like I don't even think we have a lot in common. Those are people who are going to be more likely to get, you know, mildly offended at something like that. But anyway, so they weren't really offended, but they were just kind of saying, well, you know, people won't act offended, but you can tell they kind of are because they'll start explaining their rationale for doing something that you're making fun of. Like, I don't understand why people do this on a plane. And then people will comment and be like, well, here's why I do it. And it's like, you're kind of missing the point. I don't care. I mean, I just said I'm going to be at the bar and I'll buckle my seatbelt when all of you guys have finished getting on. But so one person was trying to explain it to me, this is what I assumed it was, which was, you know, I want to get like settled and make sure my bag is packed the right way. But it's like, again, they're not going to have you ever seen people, have you ever been on a plane where there's like some idiot who has a freaking body bag that they want to put in the above?
Yeah.
And they're just like, it's going to fit, you know? And has anyone ever just been like, well, you know, the rest of you can't fly until, or, you know, they're not going to just like kick that guy off. They're going to figure it out. And I've sat there for 20, 30 minutes sometimes while they try to figure out what to do with this guy's body bag. So that's why I'm just not in a rush, because I've never seen a plane take off that fast. And in many cases, you should be prepared to be stuck in there anyways. Like once you get in there, once they lock the doors, you don't know how long you're going to be in there. You know, something could happen and they could say, yeah, we're number 48 for takeoff. It's going to be a couple of hours. It's usually not that bad, but I've been in situations where it really was like,
yeah, it'll take like 45 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, how do we get from that to favorite joke? I think there was more.
Oh, it was a comic who had a joke about airline.
Okay. So that was for the comic. This Diane says, and this one's for the counsel. If you weren't a lawyer, what would you be? Just an amazing guy, I guess. Or do you aspire to be a judge one day? That's a good question. I don't know why people have asked me that a lot. I don't know if I just give off a vibe of like, I just seem like judgmental. Maybe that's what it is. But if you weren't a lawyer, what would you be? I don't know.
Rock star, right? Bass player.
Yeah, or just like a billionaire of some sort. I don't know. I never really, you know, some people have, were you ever like this? Like you know, some people are like, and I went to law school with people like this. I've heard other people went to law school. They're like, well, I saw, you know, Susan Sarandon and The Client when I was 8, and I just knew I was going to be a lawyer ever since. Some of it, I think people are kind of full of it. You know what I mean? I think they're just kind of piecing things together to sound like they've always been so dedicated to the law. But I've never really aspired to like just be sort of like one type of thing, and just I've always just tried to aspire to choose.
When did you
make decisions in life that
when do you think it was like the time that you were like, you know, I think I want to be a lawyer? Was that like high school?
Oh no. I actually took an aptitude test in high school. Did you ever do that? Where they sit you down and you have to sit on a computer for like an hour and answer a bunch of questions about your personality, and then it'll give you like 4 or 5 professions, and it'll have a percentage. And
I took something like that before.
Mine was that when I took one of those in law school, and it said number one was judge, and then number two was and I didn't even think about that. That's what she asked, right? So that's the number one thing. And then the second one was maybe just lawyer or law professor, something like that. And then I don't remember the other ones, but no, I mean, and even by college, a lot of times people are like, well, I want to do this. I want to be a pharmacist because of this, and I want to move to Arizona and go work in this area, whatever. But I never really felt like that. I always felt my mind was always just kind of like trying to figure out how to lead a happy life. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because I mean, it doesn't matter if you have $1 billion, if you got it the wrong way, or like you're lonely, then it's not going to matter.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's why so many, you see people who have been kind of achieved things that most of us would dream of, and then they commit suicide, they die of drug overdoses, right? And sometimes that, fame probably makes you feel even lonelier, like at times when you are alone, because people probably feel like people don't really understand you. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like it was sometime in college, I just thought there's different reasons. I was always kind of involved in I had sort of a public interest mindset. Like I didn't think about it until I started putting the pieces together. I was a substitute teacher in public schools. I tutored kids in college through the No Child Left Behind program in like project housing neighborhoods. And I worked at our public library for a couple of years, and I've always kind of volunteered to be in public things. And so a legal career made sense, because the other thing too is I always had to work. I've worked a bunch of jobs like you. So have you, like minimum wage jobs, right? And and the thing about trying to become a lawyer for me that was appealing was not having like some jerk boss, in some of these places. Like I would have people who just they were unpleasant, and it was just because they were unhappy and unfulfilled, right? And they're taking it out on you because like their restaurant's not doing well or whatever. And so, and the other thing too is I get kind of bored. And so if you pick something like a law career, then working through that it's interesting. Like intellectually it keeps you, some things get kind of boring and mundane, but there's always something new, some new challenge.
Right, it keeps you fresh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's fulfilling too. Like, because if you're someone who like wants some intellectual stimulation, and you're working a job where you're not getting that, and you're taking somebody else taking their anger out at you because they're running a business that's not doing well, then that could be really frustrating. So what would I be? Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could say that. I would tell you what I would love to do, which would be pretty much anything in Los Angeles. Like I said, I would have moved here. It's really expensive. I had a girlfriend when I was about 21 who asked me, and she was like the valedictorian of her high school, and was kind of different than me in that way. Like just always kind of did everything that you would want a kid to do. Just did everything that your guidance counselor would want you to do. She was, and always just kind of like knew what she wanted to do, what college she wanted to go to, and everything like that. And she asked me one time, and the answer I gave to her, she was like, if you just could do whatever you want right now. And the answer I gave her then was to write a sitcom, actually. And I think the answer would be a little different than it was then, like the kind of sitcom I was thinking of then, because we didn't have streaming services, and the writings evolved.
So more like a multi-cam sitcom like Friends or Seinfeld, right? Like
this like 3 camera
apartment setting,
shows, but yeah, it would just be ideally, and you can do this as a lawyer. It's just nice to wake up and do something that is positive. You know what I
mean? What's funny actually made me think of I kind of like, I mean, as a little kid, I played a lot of soccer. I think I probably wanted to be a soccer player at one point, or like like in high school, I was like, I loved playing guitar. I wanted to just play in a band, but it was like middle school time. One of my friends' moms told me one time that she was like, I think you would be a good attorney. And I was like, like 13 or something. And I don't know.
Were you arguing with her?
I think I was just, that's funny. Like my friend's mom.
Usually when I heard people say that to kids, it's usually like a way of being like.
No, I think we were just talking about something, and I probably had like I'm assuming like an interesting opinion on something like some I don't know, maybe some social issue or something. And, and I remember her saying that to me, and I was like, oh, okay. If I wasn't so lazy, I probably would have considered going to law school. But yeah, it seems like a lot of work. But
it is at first, but then that's kind of like the payoff. It's a pain, but then like once you get over that hump and you finally pass the bar, it's like, okay, I can, I'm like kind of an authority now, and it's not that you stop working, but it's just it's worth it, once you get through it. But you got to have, for me, it was just like, I knew that if I did nothing else in life, as long as I could work in a professional setting with people who, are mostly pretty intelligent people, I thought I'd be happy to just make even a decent living and be around, just as long as I wasn't working those jobs that I had to work. I was growing up, so then Diane asked, do I aspire to be a judge? Would you want to be a judge if somebody just like, I could put you on the bench right now, assuming I could teach you everything you need to know?
I'd rather actually do what you and I was like, write a sitcom. I actually want to make a TV show like that. To me, I think would be ideal.
Yeah, because I mean, the people who don't like it are not watching it. They're not going to be bothered, and anybody who's watching it is deriving pleasure from it, and you're making people happy.
And it's just so much fun to come up with funny things and actually like see them work out and be funny, right? It's like stand-up. It's like, that's why it's so rewarding. You have this great joke out of you doing it, it's funny, and it's like it's a great feeling, right? I mean, yeah. So
I'll answer it like this. Being a judge is a hard job. A lot of people talk about it like it's just this cushy, that judge just sits up there and like he just judges people, and I think the really best judge jobs would be in the appellate court, because when you appeal your case, you go up to the appellate court, and then from there you still have you still have a case to appeal that decision. Then that's where you go to the Supreme Court of your state or of the United States Supreme Court if it's a federal case. And at that level, you can't argue the facts in front of the judge. So it's not like a jury trial. You're just arguing about the law and like whether the judge previously made like errors of law in the trial. But what I think is actually a really hard job that I think some people think is cushier than it really is being a trial judge, where the cases start, which means that, because what they do is they every week they kind of switch around, but every week they'll either be assigned to criminal court or civil court, and they kind of alternate. So you come in on a Monday morning, and what you're doing all week is you're hearing criminal trials, and then another week you're hearing civil trials. So that means you're having to sit through, your week is like, if it's a murder case, like that's your whole week, just watching and listening to a murder and listening to all the details, and you're looking at all the pictures. People threaten you. You have to sentence people to life in prison, and then they'll say, I'm going to kill your family. Security has to be assigned to them. But I have a lot of respect for people who do that job, all judges, but I just think, I don't think, I think it's admirable, because I think it's a lot harder than people think it is. I think it's really hard because they also do the sentencing after the jury convicts somebody. And so then they have to sit there after the trial and listen to every family member, every friend come up and talk about how bad the death, if it was a murder, impacted them. And it's heart wrenching, I heard one where it wasn't even the most gruesome thing. It was like a hit and run. The guy was running from the police, and he ended up through his recklessness, he happened to kill in the accident, a husband and wife, mother and father. They were an aunt and uncle to people. And it was just an accident, but it happened because of his recklessness, running from the police. And I was sitting in there as a law student listening to this, and I had to hear the son. I think there were several children. They were like, and then they were just like really loved people, and they just go on and on and on. And then the judge ended up issuing the sentence, and he gave the guy 12 years. And it wasn't higher because it wasn't intentional. And that's a pretty long sentence. I mean, if no one's ever been inside of a jail, like just go, if you could just spend a couple of nights in a jail,
couple nights, I'm like a couple hours, I'm
right. I mean,
good to go.
I mean, if you see the experience of like realizing that you really locked up, like that the state has control over you and your body, it's a horrible feeling to sit through for like you said, a couple of hours, but especially over a decade. But anyways, when he issued the sentence, the son, he was the youngest, the baby, he was, I think, having the hardest time with it, and he just lost it in court because he just felt like someone had just said that his parents' lives weren't worth that much. And in the grand scheme of things, I think it was actually a proper sentence if you knew the sentencing range that was in the statute and everything. And the guy who did the accident was actually really young. So that's the other thing is you don't want to completely throw away a young person. But I remember that was just like really hard for me to just, right. If you're like an empathetic person, you just kind of feel all that pain. So that's another reason I think it's an admirable job to do. Well, that's it. That's the last question we have. We went from somebody was defecating on your porch to the admirable profession
the
of
porch of my mansion in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah, how are people getting up there to your porch when it's so far up there?
Take a bird scooter.
Yeah.
But no, cool. And hopefully Jonathan will come to LA more often so we could
I will for sure.
So we could do podcasts at the Sheraton Universal.
It's a nice place. It's not far from where you're at.
Yeah, not far at all. Cool little spot. All right, that was episode 5 of the Comic and the Counsel. Thank you for listening, watching. Again, email us any questions, comicandcounsel@gmail.com. And like us, subscribe, all that good stuff on YouTube.
And stay away from this porch, Scasa.
Stop shitting on my porch of my mansion in the Hollywood Hills. Good night.